Thank you. No problem, everything is fine. You can hear yourself, as long as it's not too loud. Don't focus on the sound. I think you know you deliver. This is your job. This is what you do every day. Yeah, do it again.
Good morning, Permanent Secretary, Public Service Office, Mrs. Sukanmi Oyegbola.
Good morning.
Facilitator for
Good
today,
morning.
Dr. Jemima. Good morning.
Good
Good
morning.
morning, distinguished participants. I especially recognize all retired heads of service and permanent secretaries on this call. I welcome you all to webinar for retirees today. Our topic for today is Lassa Fever. Before we go right into it, I would like to welcome Permanent Secretary, Public Service Office, Sukanmi Oyegbola. So please, on behalf of the Head of Service, declare this webinar open. Over to you,
Yes,
ma.
madam.
PSO.
No problem. I'm already on. The meeting has started. Okay, thank you.
Please unmute, ma, and go on.
It's just good morning. Half the time it doesn't allow me to unmute, so that's the problem. Okay, so a very good morning to everyone on the call. I say Eid Mubarak to our faithfuls. On this call and former and retired farm sex on well, in Lagos State, to the glory of God, we have not had it, and we pray that we will not have it. And one of the ways that we can prevent it and know more about it is why we are having this webinar today. So on behalf of the service, once again, I welcome everyone. And I think that we all have happy deliberation. Anyone on Tuesday. Let me also welcome our the doctor that's going to be taking us this morning. I wish you all happy deliberations. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you very much, ma. So, like I said earlier, we are going to be talking about Lassa fever. We are going to look at the history of Lassa fever in Nigeria, how it spreads, the signs, the symptoms, the diagnosis, the management, people who are at risk, and so on and so forth. To take us on that topic this morning is Dr. Jemima McDaniels. Let me quickly take a citation before we go ahead. Dr. McDaniels is a dedicated medical doctor with a passion for public health. She graduated from prestigious University of Benin and has worked in Edo State Specialist Hospital. She currently State Ministry of Health. She's very passionate about patient care and actively engages in community outreaches and collaborations with NGOs to provide health education to the public. Her unwavering dedication to improving public health through education and awareness has left an indelible mark on the community she served. She's driven by a desire to create lasting positive change in the health-seeking attitude of people. She enjoys reading, cooking, and traveling. Dr. Jemima McDaniels, you're welcome this morning to this call. You can have the floor now and then go ahead with your presentation. Thank you. Is Dr. Jemima, please unmute. Please unmute.
Hello, good morning. Good morning,
Good
everyone.
morning. Good morning.
I'm happy to be here to share information with everyone. I'll be starting shortly, but while we'll be discussing, I just want to use this opportunity to thank the Lagos State government and the State Health Service for inviting me over to have this discussion with everyone. This is in commemoration with the recently celebrated World Health Day that held on the 7th of April. Yes, the 7th of April. It's usually held every year. Started since 1948 and every year. And this year, the theme is My Health, My Rights. So I'm happy that the Lagos State government has seen it as an opportunity because part of the rights of an individual can be properly administered if they understand and they are well educated on issues around their community, because that's what the WHO is for, is to draw attention to topics of concern to people all over the world. So I'm thankful for the opportunity to be sharing to everyone today. Please, can you hear me clearly?
Yes, very clearly.
Oh, thank you very much. So today we're going to be discussing a very important topic, which is Lassa Fever. Okay, I want to try to make my slides such that okay.
It's already showing.
Okay. Okay, so we'll be discussing Lassa Fever. Can you still see my slides, please?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay. So we'll be moving on to, this is the outline I'm going to be using. We're going to be talking about the history or what Lassa Fever is, the signs and symptoms you find in persons with Lassa Fever. How do we make our diagnosis in the healthcare, in the hospital? What do we do to manage these people, to prevent mortalities? Who are the people that easily can get this, and what are the measures? In fact, this is where I'm going to lay more emphasis because I believe more in preventive medicine. It reduces the risk of spread. So prevention, what are we to do about prevention? What happens if a person has already contracted it? And then we could do a little question and answer. Are you with me, everyone? Good morning.
Yes, we are with
Okay.
you.
Okay, so I'm going to start with the fact that Lassa fever is an acute viral illness. We call it a viral hemorrhagic fever. Now, what are viral hemorrhagic fevers? They are a group of infectious diseases caused by viruses that affects the blood ability to clot. So when this thing gets into the body, gets into the blood, you find out that the person's ability to clot blood is altered. And so as the disease progresses, the person starts to bleed out from different parts of the body. Now, the bleeding out might not be the usual. They could bleed out from their eyes, from their nose, from their ears, or it could be that they are urinating and they see large amounts of blood coming out. So this Lassa fever is one of the viral hemorrhagic fevers. Other ones that we've heard of that we do not know were in this category is Ebola and yellow fever. These diseases have similar modes of transmission. So I mentioned here that it's a zoonotic disease. What it means by being zoonotic is the fact that it is present in animals. Animals carry this disease around. So the easiest way to contract it most times is, or the first point of call for contact of this disease is animals. And in this case, yeah, because we're talking about Lassa fever today, in this case, the animal in question is the multimammate rat. So I'm sure you can see a picture. As we move forward, we're going to find out more about the multimammate rat. It's called multimammate because the word mammate is from the word mammary. Mammary means breast. So multi-mammate means it has multiple breasts. We're going to be seeing a picture of it. So it has been associated with high morbidity and mortality, high infective states, and it eventually leads to death. Now, it has economic and health security consequences because of the fact that if it affects one person, people within that vicinity are at risk. And so it poses a health risk for others. Now, where did it get its name from? It was first discovered or first reported in a community in Borno State called Lassa community in Nigeria. It was found out randomly when 2 missionary nurses were found to have died from an illness where they were just running temperatures. And after that, they just passed on, and more research. Thankfully, we have medical research. And so more research went about, and they were able to find out that, oh, this is a viral hemorrhagic fever. And they were able to pin how the diagnosis went about, and they gave it a name after the community where it was first found. And since then, it has spread across several parts of West Africa, just like I mentioned before. If one person has it, people within that surrounding are at risk. So you talk of Benin Republic, we talk of Ghana, and some other regions around that area also suffer similar symptoms when it's that time because of it has first been discovered in Nigeria. So yes, this is a picture. Can we all see the picture? Hello, good morning. Can we see the picture?
Everyone is muted, but the picture is showing.
Okay, thank you very much. I usually like feedback. So this is a picture of the multi-mammate
rat. People can give feedback by typing. Okay,
thank you very much. So this is a picture of the multi-mammate rat, and it's transmitted to man. Now we call it Mastomys natalensis, the medical name for it, but it's just known as a multi-breasted, multi-mammate rat. Now, how do humans get infected? You know, for many years, people had not heard about it till a recent incident some years ago, and then more research also came about. Now, how do people get infected? Humans can become infected when they have direct contact with the urine and feces of the rats. Now, the question is, do humans eat these feces and the urine? You won't, in your right mind, go and do that. But the problem is, these things are not easily seen. These rats get into food produce in the farmlands. They get into food that is not properly stored in the houses, and they soil these things. In the course of eating, they wee on the materials, they wee on these food products, and then the risk of infection is very high when these things are consumed. So it was first around Edo State. It was found that, oh, Gari, that was like the initial time when it came out in like 2014, 2015. People were advised, oh, don't soak your Gari. Make sure it is heated, it is cooked in water and made before you eat your Gari as ever. Soaking Gari was a little, people cautioned against it around that time. Yes, so it usually urinates in all these things. And so it was found in those parts of Edo State where this Gari is produced. You know, people have to sun dry them, yeah, so that it can be dry enough for export to other parts of the country. And so it was found that in the course of trying to dry them, these rats will come out of the bushes or even in the house. They go and then they soil this gari and other farm produce with their urine and their feces. And sometimes, you know, in a bit to make gain, humans were very wonderful. In a bit to make gain, if they see something like that, they just pack that side and pour it away. But they forget to realize that the whole produce at that point that the rat had contact with, even if you're not physically seeing the feces, that the whole thing has been contaminated. Now, it doesn't stop at the ones that the rats have urinated on or passed feces on. It could also go as far as soiled objects. Now, anybody that has had contact with something that has been soiled without knowing, something that has been infected by these rats and goes on to touch something else, can infect that thing too, because the thing can be there on the palms. Yeah, we'll be discussing later why there is benefit in always washing your hand. There is benefit in always using a sanitizer. Also, when there are open cuts or sores, this could also get in. Now, there's something called the secondary transmission. This person was just there, didn't have contact with the rat at any point. However, this person came in contact with somebody that must have had contact with a contaminated material from the rats before, and then having contact with this person, their bodily fluids can cause an infection. So going out, seeing somebody that is bleeding from the ear, from the nose, or anywhere, and just touching or having contact with what that person has touched increases the risk of developing something like this. Also, things like urine, things like feces of this other person or bodily secretions are a big risk. There are things that could get one infected. Yes. So we'll continue like this. And even in the hospital space, I know that many persons work in the Ministry of Health or other parastatals. In the hospital space, going to visit people or going to visit someone, or even people that work in the hospital, they have high risk of also contracting this because contact with tissues or persons, bodily fluids of persons without using adequate personal protective equipment can increase the risk of contracting it, and then the person will have symptoms just like one that has had contact with a rat. Now, how does it spread? Now, I've mentioned before that it could come from the rat to a human, or from humans to humans, or contact with bodily fluids. So those that work in the labs, be careful to wear your gloves when you're handling blood samples, stool samples, urine samples. Yes, always wash your hands. Yes, so how does it spread? When it gets into the body, gets into the bloodstream, I mentioned before that it prevents blood from clotting, but that is not a manifestation you will find immediately. First of all, the syndrome can come and look like malaria. So a person might have symptoms that look like malaria, might have fever, might have body aches, might have sore throats, might feel like vomiting sometimes. Some others might have chest and abdominal pain. Now, this is within the period the thing is still building inside the body. So normally the person will say, oh, I think I have malaria. I want to get it treated. I think I have some other symptoms. I want to get it treated. But the WHO has advised that anyone that has had feverish symptoms that with temperatures greater than 38%, that is not amenable to the routine malaria drugs. After treating your malaria for 3 days and you're not seeing improvement, instead it's looking like it's worse, always report at the hospital. Yes, because we're hoping that you are not having a viral hemorrhagic fever at that point so that it can be adequately tested. Now, the thing with hospital presentations, I was giving a talk on a radio station yesterday. I told them that as much as doctors and nurses and health workers are superheroes, yes, if people present to them, they are at the forefront trying to save lives. There is a timeline of presentation of the hospital that makes for a good outcome. So early presentation is always advised, whether you know what is wrong with you or not. If you find out that your body is not doing well, or you feel it's malaria, you've treated malaria, but you're not feeling better, do well to report at the hospital, because early presentation makes for better outcome. When a person comes in and the symptoms have already gone beyond what a doctor can handle, we might use the very best of equipment, but we only just hope that the person can make it. Yeah, we do our best and we also trust God to help the person, but then early presentation will make for a very good outcome. I keep emphasizing. So what are the symptoms? So the mild ones you find, the early stages of it, is what I mentioned before. The person has fever, has headache, the body is paining the person, has joint pain, feels like vomiting. Some might even have cough or chest pain. As it progresses, the person starts to have things like the person is afraid, the person is confused, the person could even go into coma. Some can convulse, some can start bleeding from the mouth, the nose, the eyes. Now, the bleeding is usually at the later stages, and not everybody comes with that. So people do not make the illusion that if they do not bleed, it's not it. It is best to always report to the hospital, have good health-seeking behavior at all times. The worst part of it is when multiple organs start to fail. Yeah, the liver, the digestive system is failing, the renal system, thinking about the kidneys, is failing, the heart is failing, that's the cardiovascular system, the respiratory system is failing. When that happens, the chances of survival becomes very slim. So here is just a pictorial representation of the phases of how these symptoms come. So I mentioned that the first week, the person might have fatigue, general weakness, have fever, thinks it's malaria, has headache, has sore throats, vomiting, could even bleed from the nose. Yes, as they progress to the later stages. And the worst ones is when we start having multiple organ failure. I'm sure people have seen pictures like this. These are cases when the situation was not salvaged enough. I've heard of situations working in the hospital space has given me a lot of exposure. We've had times when even in the hospital, I worked in a specialist hospital, and there were times we had a scare. Yes, a patient came in and was having this one we found out through the person that was sick and we're trying to treat and all of that, and found out that the urine bag we connected to the person because the person couldn't pass urine freely. We find out that it was filled with so much blood, and this was unusual because we were treating the person for something and we're seeing so much blood, and so we sent the sample. Yeah, as we'll be finding out later, there are some special centers that do this testing, and we found out that, oh, this was Lassa fever. We immediately had to refer the person to area specialists. Now, that's a hospital where most of the cases of Lassa fever are referred to for care. They have been trained to handle conditions like this. So how do we obtain a very good diagnosis? When a patient comes to the hospital, the first thing we do is we look at the presentation of the person. The person comes having the symptoms that have been earlier explained. Yes, and then we start seeing things, and then our index of suspicion is raised. Could it be that this person has? And usually, part of the factors that also make us track things like this, apart from laboratory results, is when we started having incidents of it in a particular area. Let's assume one area of the state, of the country, people have started recording cases of that. So when others walk into the hospital, we want to test them to make sure that they do not have it too. Yes, that is one way we can do, we can control it. So we test a lot of people coming down with similar symptoms or malaria symptoms at that time. So we do different specialized tests to find out if this is actually Lassa fever. So I started out with saying that Lassa fever is one of the viral hemorrhagic fevers, and that there are other types of hemorrhagic fever. So people might think when they come to the hospital, there are many things we can think about that could cause it. It could also other conditions that might look like it, I meant to say. So things like Ebola. Yes, Ebola scare was in 2014, and that also looks like it, but the carrier organism is different. Yes, that one you find that in more of monkeys and bats and wild animals than rats. Yes, so that one. And then it could be malaria. I mentioned that the early symptoms mimic malaria symptoms, such that a person has fever, the person has headache and body pains. Some people could also have typhoid fever. In the past, I've spoken to people about typhoid fever, and I've told them about the fact that we do several tests to find out what typhoid is. That is not the rational one that people walk into a hospital and say, oh, I have typhoid. I used to tell them, if you have typhoid, you will not walk into my hospital. They will carry you because it's usually a very severe illness. So by the time we start seeing them, they are bleeding, they are this and that, we start wondering, what else could this be? Yellow fever is another one. That one is transmitted by mosquitoes. Yes, that's why it's very good to get vaccinated, have your yellow card, and be vaccinated against yellow fever. So who are the people at risk? Well, I do not have very excellent news here because anybody can be affected. So there is nobody absolved of Lassa fever. There's nobody that you say, oh, I have the genes enough to fight it. So anybody can get infected. That's why we are going to dwell on preventive medicine so that we'll tell you ways to prevent it so that people are not coming down with it very often. Now, people that are living in or visiting West Africa, now, we are in West Africa, Nigeria, along with other neighboring countries. Now, because we've had outbreaks like this in the past, means that we have to be even more careful. Yes, because we have the vector, we have the rats in our vicinity. Also, those that are traveling out of the country into Nigeria during the time of outbreaks can also contract it. Now, usually it used to be in the rainy season before now, but it has also been found that even in the dry season, you can also still find the rats coming out of the bushes and getting into the houses. Yes, and so that is why we still encourage those in the diaspora to advocate for health in our environment, because what affects one affects all. So individuals that are also living in poorly sanitized areas can also suffer from this, because if you do not keep measures in place to protect your food, if rats get into your homes, if rodents are getting into your houses, if you do not keep a clean and safe environment, you have a higher chance of contracting it. Health workers, yes, will not leave that out. That is why most times health workers always advocate for, because they are exposed to these hazards, yes, of seeing patients. We all tell people, you know, during COVID scare, we told people, oh, stay at home, but those that are infected, go to the hospital. So the health workers are usually at the forefront of an outbreak, trying to absorb all of these. So providing adequate amounts of personal protective equipment and adequate compensation of affected health workers will encourage them to also continue to care for patients, because health workers have contact. Yeah, I've told you of a time when we were in the hospital and we had a case, we had a patient like that. During that period, all of us that had contact, they had to isolate us and say, oh, this set of people, he had contact with patients, so let's watch you for a period of days. Let's see if you're feeling better. Let's see if you have similar symptoms. Things like that happen in the health space because you cannot afford it. You cannot avoid it, rather. If a patient walks into the hospital and is sick, the first thing a health worker will do is want to test the patient, want to take out blood samples. You send those samples to the lab. The laboratory scientists are affected. The nurses come to care for these patients. The nurses also have contact. So the health workers are people that are also at risk of contracting this. Now we're going to dwell here. Prevention. Now, unlike yellow fever that I mentioned before that has a vaccine, I'm sorry to say that Lassa fever has no vaccine yet. We would encourage the government to fund more of research so that things like this can be discovered. But in the meantime, what can we do to protect ourselves? Hand washing. You know, hand washing is something that it's very little, but has very, very great benefits. Always wash your hands. And it's as good as when you think about it, just wash your hands. You step out of your house and you come back in, wash your hands. You see a tap running with water and you see soap, just wash your hands. You shake hands with somebody. If you have a sanitizer, please use it. If you have access to running water, please wash your hands. Yes, washing your hands reduces the risk of contracting so many conditions, from Ebola to Lassa fever to yellow fever, many kinds of conditions, even diarrhea, yeah, and typhoid fever, all those other things can be reduced by proper hand washing. So I hope if there's anything you're going to take from this meeting today is that always wash your hands. Always wash your hands. It does not just help to prevent or reduce the risk of spread of COVID. It helps for many other conditions. Use personal protective equipment. Whenever you hear of an outbreak or anything, always make sure if you're going to some areas that is crowded or anything, use your face mask, protect yourself. I told you body fluids can help transmit things like this. So sometimes use your face mask. If you work in a hospital space, always use the protective gadgets. Use a glove when handling blood or body fluid of persons. Adequate disposal of infected items. This is where the health, sanitary, and waste management team will come in, because if these things are not properly disposed, the risk of spread to people in that environment is very high. So all this open dumping of materials, used and waste materials, is very not encouraged. It's not encouraged at all. So proper disposal of infected items will help reduce the risk of spread. Avoid by all means contact with rats. Now, sometimes some people might have rats that die in their house and they're trying to count the birds. Is this on the multi-mammoth? You don't know which can be carrying the condition. Yeah, before you will notice the multi-mammoth rats, probably the person is already sick. So by all means, avoid contact with rats. Put your dry grains, your food, in sealable containers. Make sure that your foods are properly cooked. Yes, so that whatever it is, if there are organisms in your meals, they can be killed. Most organisms are killed at very high temperatures. So if your meals are properly cooked, you reduce the risk of contracting. Community hygiene. I told you what affects one affects all. So if a person is keeping a very clean environment and those around the person they are not doing well with keeping their environment clean, we find out that rodents will still come to those places. So as a community, we should stand together to say, oh, we want our environment clean. If it means paying Loma whenever they have to come and pick dirt and all of that, do it right. Encourage them as they come to pack it. Put your dirt well sealed and tied up so that rodents cannot loosen them and make a mess of them. Cover your water properly. Some people leave their tanks open. Yes, all those kind of things can increase risk of spread of several other infections, not only just Lassa fever. So cover your water properly, your drinking water, your water you use for your daily activities, make sure they are well covered. Now, I've mentioned this before, that you should cook your meals thoroughly. Another thing you can do is avoid drying your gari or other grains in the open. I gave an example of Edo State when people dry their garis and they extend to other parts of the country, people are at risk. Yeah, so drying your gari in open space is not encouraged. Yes, you could find other means to dry your meals. You can find other means. Some people can oven dry, some people can find other methods. You can use a desiccator, but by all means, do not dry your grains in an open space. Use sealed containers for storing your food, and be careful when you're in contact with a sick person. As much as you want to care, you must also take care of yourself. Avoid contact with blood and body fluids. And if there is any suspected case or your neighbor has been treating malaria and doesn't feel better, encourage the person to go to a hospital. Report all suspected cases or cases that are not responsive to malaria medication. So this is just a picture depicting it, that you should always observe standard precautions always. That's for health workers. Always put on your gloves. Always protect yourself. Then for other people, see rat traps there. Use it to prevent rats from entering your house. Rat gums are also there. Don't touch your hand, don't touch with your hands, don't touch the bare hands rats. Yes, keep rats away. Avoid eating food or fruit eaten by rats. I've seen it in some places where people are trying to save cost, and you find a bread that's been eaten by rats, you cut off that part and eat the remaining. That is very wrong practice. Yes, always wash your hands with soap and running water, like I said before. Cover your food in very good containers that rats cannot have access to, and do not dry in open space. Now, how do we manage it? Most of the time when we see cases that are confirmed, this is Lassa fever, we usually will isolate the patient because the person is a risk to others around the person. So we usually will take the person, we have a center, IRA center. I don't know if other centers have been structured yet, but at least I know of IRA specialists where they take these patients to, and they have isolation centers where they provide standard infection prevention and control measures to prevent Lassa fever spread, and also to help the patient recover. Like I mentioned at the beginning, time of presentation is very important. If a person presents early, there are medications that can help before the organs start to fail, before the person starts to bleed out. There are drugs like Ribavirin that can help, that when we give this either orally or give it via injections, can help to reduce the progress of the disease and help the person recover fast. Now, the prognosis, like I mentioned before, the recovery time of the person is better if you start this drug early, usually within 6 days of finding out that you have such symptoms. 6 days of when the test is done, and we'll find out. The person is immediately transported there and treated. The person has a high chance of feeling better. And high quality supportive treatments are also done. I told you that organs can be affected. The person that is having problems with the respiratory organs, you can put up oxygen to help the person. The person that is bleeding out, losing blood donations can be made, and the person will be transfused to help the person feel better. Whatever it is best managed in the hospital, not at home, because whatever system is affected, we know what to do to arrest the situation, and in the end, the patient will feel better. So in summary, I have told you about Lassa fever. That is a viral hemorrhagic fever, and it is one out of the many other viral hemorrhagic fevers like Ebola and yellow fever that we've seen around, and it is caused by eating things contaminated or taking in things contaminated by the zoonotic animal, the multi-mammoth rat. I also mentioned that it doesn't stop at the rat alone. Contact with infected persons or contact with body fluids of infected persons can increase the risk of spread. Washing your hands and observing safety protocols, covering your food well, avoiding contact with rats can reduce your risk of getting it because it can affect any age group. And I say hand washing, proper hand washing and cleaning of your hands at all times reduces your risk. So I finalize by saying that early presentation at the hospital for treatment reduces the risk of eventual death from the disease. I hope I've been able to pass the message across correctly to you guys and everybody has taken it in. Thank you very much for inviting me over. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jemima McDaniels, for that very short and detailed presentation. She did a summary, but let me just quickly mention some things that she emphasized, which are also very important. She did mention that the symptoms of Lassa fever is very similar to that of malaria. And you know, in this part of the world, we treat malaria at home a lot. He said if you have treated malaria for 3 days and you are not getting better, present yourself at the hospital. He said early presentations makes for better outcome. And then she also emphasized that we should avoid contact with rats. Some of us have rats in our house. You know, it's something we should not encourage. It's something we should not allow. You know, it's something we should war against. Rats. Let's make sure we don't have them in our homes, in our communities. It's very important. She mentioned that we should always wash our hands. She said if you shake hands with somebody, if you have sanitizer, use it. If you see running water and soap, wash your hands. And she said we should cook our food properly and that we should avoid drying our foodstuffs in the open space. And then she also mentioned that there are times we see food items, a part of it has been eaten by rats. You just cut off that part and eat the remaining. He said no. She's discouraging that. We shouldn't, that kind of food item or foodstuffs should be disposed. So thank you very much, Dr. Jemima. I believe we have questions. So it is time for question and answer. If you have a question, please signify. I will ask you to unmute so that you can ask your question. You are also free to type. If you don't want to speak, you can type. So we have about 15 minutes to do that. Let's type. We are live on YouTube. So if you want to see this presentation again, I'll post the YouTube link. You can go back to it, watch it again, subscribe to that channel so that you can always go back to even previous presentations. Okay, if you don't have a question, if you have a comment, you have something that you want us to learn from, you can make a comment that we can all learn from. Okay. Somebody is saying retirees. Does that mean those still in service are not supposed to be involved? Everybody is welcome, but it's specifically for retirees. but these webinars are of advantage to every one of us. So that is why the link is always posted on all our platforms, even for serving officers, so that we can be part of it. So there is no restriction. Everybody can join. Either you are retired or you are still in active service. Okay, somebody is saying, what type of poison can one use to eradicate rats once and for all? Can doctor help with that? Okay. I think Mr. Ajibade is signifying. Please unmute, sir.
Good morning,
Good morning, sir.
and dear colleagues and other retirees and those still serving. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Yes, sir.
I just observe and think I don't know what how this can be influenced. I remember when we were growing up, these public health officers, which we used to call wole wole, they go around the community fumigating gutters. They come to your compounds. They do all those things. Those things are no more happening. And it goes a long way in those days to assist and help. People are conscious and the others are wole. So it encourages them to keep their compound and everywhere tidy. And the ones that are forced within public domain, public dustbins and all those things, they go around fumigating. And you see rats, they kill rats, they pack everything before you know it. Why are we not doing that to reduce this issue of epidemics caused by Lassa Fever and the rest of it? Can such things be revived? So that is just my observation. Can't we do something in that state? Oh, please.
You can respond to that, ma. Doctor?
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Samson Ajibade, for your question. Now, while I agree with you that the government has a role to play, we also have our individual roles in ensuring that these things are out of our homes. Now, the government can only fumigate outside your homes. They can only fumigate your streets or your communities, but inside your house, the rats can get in there. So, and even this fumigation is usually maybe seasonal, maybe a period, maybe biannually or twice a year or something, if ever they institute something like that. But everyday practice in keeping your environment clean will encourage the rats away from your environment. So our personal roles first, before we think of what the government can do, we could also advocate for health, understanding that this is caused by rats. We could also advocate and tell the government that, oh, especially areas that are infested by these rats, oh, government, can you come to our aid with pest control? But before we can even step up to what the government can do for us, we ourselves have to stand up to protect ourselves by doing what we can. Cover your meals. Yes, cover your grains in containers. Kill the rats you have around. I saw somebody's question that rat poisons in the market are not effective. You could use rat traps. Yes, you could use rat gums. That could also, you could even use the triple method. Use both the poison, the rats, the gum, anything to take them out of your house. Just by all means, do what you can to get them out. Another person said, since Gary can be a source, is there a way that contaminated Gary can be identified? Now that's the thing. The only people that can easily identify this are the people in the production units for the Gary. But again, most people do not like to have loss when it comes to their production. So it's very easy for them to just take out that part they've seen the urine or they've seen the fecal matter and then package the remaining. So it still rests in us very good health. very
Please, on mute.
effective. Yes, thank you very much. Very effective health education, just like we're having now, and awareness. We can pass this message on to people around us that, oh, when rats urinate in your gari, don't eat it. When you see rat feces in your gari, don't sell it. There is a reason for that. If measures like this are put in place, and even measures such that you congratulate people that take up things like that and protect the masses. Let's assume somebody says that, oh, I saw some fecal matter in my gari and I had to dispose it. I had some loss. If there are compensations for such persons or encouragements to help them make more sales, people will be more encouraged. Yes. So health awareness is also very important, as much as we are doing what we are doing to eradicate rats. For now, I do not know if Lagos State has an isolation center for Lassa. I know that they do have for COVID and other things, but for Lassa, for now, all over the country, we like to move patients to area specialists because we have trained personnel there that can handle it, and we have the medications. Ribavirin is an expensive medication. People cannot purchase it out of pocket. So if you tell somebody to go to a pharmacy to buy Ribavirin, they cannot afford it. So those centers are centers funded by the government. They have these medications to treat the person. The person is not paying anything for the treatment. So most times it is best the person is transported to those centers where all the materials are available. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think Mr. Ajibade still has one thing to say. He's still signifying. Please, you can unmute, sir.
Thank you so much, Doctor. I'm not too satisfied with, I know we have, as an individual, we have roles to play in keeping a healthy environment. We all know that. It's very germane, not only in the area of health, in almost every area. Is you yourself as an individual and the government. What I'm saying is going up in the 60s, up to the early 70s, what we are doing that is working for us, why should we abandon it? That's what I'm saying. I know you will fight rodents in your house, you will set gum, you will set tram, you will set whatever you sell, or tapia, whatever they call it. All those things were there. We tried. But don't forget the fact that most of these things come from dump sites that falls under the purview of the government. Was there a deliberate policy to hit on to what we have been doing in the past that is beneficial to the entire community? If government is doing enough in terms of fumigating, going to dump sites where most of these students come from and run into people's house, that is why when you wake up in the morning at times, you see the streets, you see rodents killed by cars or whatever. So dump sites that are not well taken care of. And some other areas like that, the shanties, all those areas, government should pay more attention because they escape from those places into individual homes. Yes, individuals battle in their homes to keep away from all those things. But I'm talking, do we still have public health officers going about fumigating and preventing all those things? Is government doing its part just as individuals are being obliged to play their own roles? What is the issue?
Okay, thank you very much. I see your point now. That was 60s and 70s, and that must have been very effective. I will say that along the line in development, some of these things may have been dropped in the past, but this is where health advocacy comes in. We can encourage the government, you know, just like talk shows like this that we have had, things like this, if it gets to the table of the government, they will hear your point of view. Yes, and see that things like this, these were methods that were used in the past that worked, and we want them to be reinstituted. So public health advocacy, just like this, because I know that for now, we might have health environment individuals that go about to check the gutters and every other thing, but for killing of pests, I do not know if they currently have a body that is in charge of that, but that's the benefit of meetings like this. We notice a problem. Okay, we feel that if we have organizations and bodies that are in charge of this, we'll be able to properly eradicate it and put Lassa fever at bay in our state. And so recommendations like this can come to the health sector. Yes, the Ministry of Health recommendations. Yes, we're very, very pleased with this thing you have pointed out, and very well. I'm sure that if this gets to the table of the right persons, yes, they'll be able to take action because it's for our own general good. Yes, we're trying to put Lassa Fever away from Lagos State. So whatever measures will be helpful for the state, we'll be able to do that. But you know that when it comes to laws and policies, it might take a little while because it goes from table to table. It might not be as swift as we want it to. So in the meantime, whatever we can do to protect ourselves and those in our communities, we are encouraged to do that. And also put our voice out there. When health workers or other people are advocating for things like this, let us join our voice in unison and tell the government that, oh, we would love something like this. And eventually they will definitely listen to us. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much, sir, Mr. Ajibade, for your contribution. I want to use this opportunity to recognize one-time Honorable Commissioner in the state and a former permanent secretary, Mrs. Oguntu Ashe, who is on this call. Thank you for joining us. I can see that Mrs. Rotimi is signifying. Please unmute and go ahead with your question or contribution. Mrs. Rotimi, you have the floor. Are you there? Please unmute, Mrs. Rotimi.
Mute. Okay. Yes. Good morning, former Honorable Commissioner, the facilitator, Mrs. Drodala, you're doing a good work, and my colleague, dear retirees. Yes, I want to contribute. I agree with Mr. Ajibade, what Mr. Ajibade had said. I remember during even when we were in primary school, we will even make motorboats inside gutter. That's how clean the gutters were then. So I agree that we should bring back what transpired in the 60s, in the early 70s, that made Lagos State clean. Then I also want to lend my voice, to contribute that there are already laws and policies. If they are talking about laws all over the world, Nigeria has a lot of laws. We have laws in Lagos State for all these things already. I'm a lawyer. Now, this responsibility is under the local governments. What are the local governments doing? Our so-called representatives at the House of Assembly, councillors and everything, what is their job? This is their job, to ensure that our community is clean. Big rats does not live inside the house. It's outside. And then they come inside to pollute whatever you have in your house. So now, Madam Facilitator, you have a duty as well as an organization to ensure that the people that the government had given that duty to do mount pressure on them and ensure that they do compliance. I see a lot of wole people. I don't know what they call them now. Whether they call them health officers at the local government in white and brown, like khaki trousers or khaki skirts. They just put their hands in their pocket and they are walking around the streets without doing anything. 2 days ago, I still see some along Bangodo. They are not doing anything. So even as an organization, as that you mount pressure on the government, go down to the local government. It is under the prerogative, under the duties of the local government to ensure that their environment is clean, not only sharing palliatives. The most palliative we want is our community to be clean. People should be reading free of Lassa Fever so that people don't get sick. What's the point of giving you rice at the end of the day, you end up in the hospital? So that is what we want the local government. This duty is under the purview of the local government. The councillors are there, like I said. All these ward leaders are there. What are they doing? So we have to really ginger them up. Yes, as a member of the community, we also have our own responsibility to ginger up all these people to be up and doing with their work. That look, the wole people are under your purview. Some people are earning salary every day, but they are not doing the job. We are not seeing them on the street. You see them on the street, they have their hands in their pocket, like I said earlier on. I was driving, I wish I was walking, I would have snapped their photographs. So these are the areas that we really, really need to mount pressure on the government. Government has that responsibility because these big rats, they don't normally live inside the house. They'll just eat what they want to eat and then they go out on the street again. Then going back, our dustbins, how do we clean our dustbins? I have the Loma dustbin, but before I put my dirt in the Loma dustbin, I'll first of all put it in a black bag. I won't be tied any Loma person that will go and carry somebody's mess and put it in my dustbin and be throwing it into their truck. I always insist that they must wash my dustbin for me. Because so those are things that one can use, at least as an individual, to make sure that your environment is clean. Then another contribution I will make is that if you are the person that loves dog, that you can accommodate dogs. If you have the dogs in your area, rats will not come because they can't stick dogs. Even reptiles would run because your dog will do a lot for you. I have a dog, so I don't have all these big, yes, I see them outside my gate, but they never come inside my compound because when I smell the dog, they run away. So for people that maybe have a compound or whatever, or you are a dog lover, you might also look into that as well to ensure that your environment is clean and everything. Then finally, concerning, I just want to react a little bit to the Gary people. We are talking of these people that are making the Gary and everything. We don't go into their shops. They have all these rats in their shop. How can we control them? The regulatory body will not know, because you will not know when the rat has pissed into. God help us in Nigeria, because you see, people are not sincere. People are not sincere. I have seen a woman that was selling Gary that water had, water got into it and it has molded. She removed the mold and she was sieving it. And I said, madam, this is what you are doing is not right. And she said, oh, she paid a lot of money buying it. And I said, if you sell it to anybody when I'm here now, I'll call in the tax force and they'll seal up your shop. Yes, we have some duty as well as individuals to be bold enough to speak out when we see things like that. So I'll stop at that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma. Thank you also, Mr. Ajibade, for your contribution. Thank you, Mrs. Rotimi. I think from our end in Public Service Office, we will be able to do something about it by writing. And I think from the end of the Alausa too, since the Alausa is policy advisor to government, I think we can also push something from your end so that at least we can bring back all these things that has made our community clean, that has made us healthier in the past. Thank you very much once again. And I don't know, it's like Mr. Ajibade-san still up. I don't know if he still has anything to say, but let's just have about 2 minutes more. Then we'll round up this session and then the PSPSO can come in and then close the meeting for us. Mr. Ajibade.
Yeah, thank you. I want to appreciate Mrs. Rotimi. But then I also want to add that most of the markets where we have them, those selling along the street, shops they have there, they still dump waste on the road, on the medians. So I think we require a lot of enforcement on those people. We have to check them. Rodents also get through that place to get people's homes. Another thing I want to say is that is very, very fundamental. It's a very trivial issue. And that is the issue of the role of local governments. I had an experience with the local government. I worked there for 1 year and we know what we used to do in those days. That is in the 70s. But then, I don't know, it's a real issue that has been tabled at the National Assembly. Are the local government allowed to play the roles and responsibility allotted them? Because we know how they work in those days. So it's a fundamental issue that has to be resolved. If we want the local government as the third tier of government, then they should give them that autonomy and let them do their responsibility. But today, nobody can boast and tell us that the local government are functional. They are figureheads. That is the truth. They are not. They are doing little or nothing. So I think it's an issue of constitutional issue that been tabled at the National Assembly. By the time they resolve that, because the land opinion is divided, some states don't want them to have the autonomy. So it's a trivial issue. But if we have the local governments and we allow them to do it the way they have been doing in the past, we will have a lot of relief. In those days, they do roads, they are in charge of markets, they are in charge of little things within the community. And they are doing pretty well. But today, it's not the case. So I think the earlier they resolve this at the National Assembly, and if they are allowing it as a third tier of government, if they are giving to the state full control over them, well, they just have to resolve it so that we can have a local government that is functional and playing roles expected of them as local government to serve the grassroots. But Loma, you have to also talk to Loma in evacuating waste dumped on medians as early as possible, and also penalize those who are breaching. These laws are there, like Mr. Rotimi said, these laws are there. There is no new laws we are going to set out for the states. They are there. You just dust the papers, dust our law books, we see the laws haven't taken care of all of these sectors. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for your contribution. God bless you. On this note, let's say thank you very much to Dr. Jemima once again. Can we have somebody to appreciate Dr. Jemima? Okay, maybe Mrs. Rotimi should just do it for us straight ahead. Please unmute and appreciate Doctor on our behalf.
Okay, Dr. Jemima, we thank you for your paper. It's really, really nice. And of course, the contribution is also robust as well. Thank you for taking time out to come and enlighten us, especially during the holiday season when a lot of people are on holiday, but you still took out the time, you didn't cancel. So we appreciate you for that. So on behalf of the Lagos State government, I say a very big thank you. I thank the HOS as well and the permanent secretary. Like I said before, my sister, Mrs. Drodola, no, well done. Thumbs up for you every time. And of course, to my colleagues as well that have taken the time, despite the holiday festive season, to make sure that this session wasn't a failure, you know. We still contributed, a lot of people on ground. I say thank you very much and God bless everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm not sure my PS is still on this call.
I'm on the call, though.
Okay. All right. So please, your contribution.
Oh, PS.
And then...
Thank you.
Auntie Ekaroma.
Yeah.
So let's have your take on this issue.
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much. I must say a very warm, thank you to Dr. McDaniels. You've done a very good expose. I thought that face mask had gone with COVID, but now I see that it just cannot go. There are times that we just need to use it, particularly in the hospital environment. Even if you go to hospital to visit, you might just need to use a face mask. And of course, hand washing will never go away. So we need to wash. One thing that comes through for me is about community cleanliness. And of course, like I said, the role of the local government. Well, I heard about the Wuli Wuli thing, and I'm sure that we can take this back to the Ministry of the Environment. Let's see what they can come up with, what we can reintroduce. Because the question is, how did we get here? How did we lose it? So we might need to retrace our steps in order for us to continue to have a productive society. Because if our communities are not clean, then we have issues. And of course, we also know that our people do not want to pay anything. So you have people going out of their homes to go and dump refuse on the roadside so that Loma can pick it up without them having to pay anything. People need to be responsible both to themselves and to the society at large. So I hope that with campaigns like this, with talks like this, we can take it back to our respective societies, our respective communities, our churches, our mosques, and let people know that one man's dirtiness can cause a whole community health issues, and we do not want to pass it down to ourselves and our children. Thank you very much for today. I appreciate that we have taken time out of our holiday while we are resting to listen to this talk. It's a very apt discussion, and I thank you all for the contributions, particularly from Mr. Jibade, Auntie Rotimi. Thank you very much. It's always good listening to you at any time. I've picked up one or two things again. And thank you very much, the full service department and the team. We appreciate you. Thank you all for being on the call. Everyone that has been here today, we say thank you very much. We will all get there. We will all get there. The society that we want, we will get there. We continue to escalate, continue to do this periodically to help ourselves, to help our society. Thank you very much. And let me say, enjoy the Eid. So let's ensure that after the fasting, we do not need to fast on drugs. Thank you very much. God bless you and have a pleasant Eid. Enjoy the holidays. On behalf of
Thank you very much, my peers.
So on behalf of Mr. Olabode Shuaib Aguru, I would like to bring this webinar to a close for today, and we pray that we'll see again in 2 weeks by His grace. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Thank you very much, my permanent secretary, for your contribution. I want to thank all of us for participating. We have already changed the setting. So let's
check
our mute. So I've changed the setting. We can all unmute.
Yes, I bow and tremble. Fanta. Yes, Auntie Mori, you. Yes, I didn't call you.
My friend,
Miss Amandu.
My sister.
Oh, Gaji.
My sister. How are you?
Auntie me.
My sister.
Yes, ma. Auntie Maggie. Because Maggie goes up there. Mori in there. Auntie Maggie, no one can.
Ṣẹ́rí ajá mi tó bá gbé ìtàn yín sẹ́nu ẹ̀yin kan tẹ́ bá rí ẹ̀rú máa bà yín ni.
Ẹ má tẹ̀lé o. A ṣì ń gbádùn ọ̀gá mi ní aláwọ̀ sí o. Ẹ jọ o, ó ra má já yín so.
I had to go and get it because of all that kind of rubbish. Honestly.
I have feel that. I'm going to get that.
That was the reason. Why? You know, reptiles, snakes, oríṣiríṣi.
That's true. That's true, because they also kill them.
Yes, yeah, they kill them. They kill them. Scorpions. They kill everything.
That's true. Yes, sir. Dr. Daniel, thank you very much. I can see you are quiet. You're wondering what's going on. This is how we network after the session.
Yes, ma. And I'm so pleased. I'm just observing, and it's wonderful. Thank you, ma.
Thank you so much. Mr. Ogbesios.
Yes, ma.
Ogbechukuma.
Yes, ma. Bless you, ma.
Okay, enjoy your holidays. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Office of the HOS, thank you so much.
So we're ending the meeting now until the next 2 weeks. See you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.